Welcome back, everyone. We are now at episode number 51. My name is Ahsan Raza from Century 21 Innovator Realty, your local GTA real estate agent. If you have anyone that is in the market for 2025, looking to make a move, buy, sell, or invest, or just needs advice, you can hit me up or DM me or call me at 647-995-7292. Now we got that out of the way. I want to give you guys a quick update. We are at 284 subscribers. Seems less, but it's going to be an organic growth. If you guys can please do me a favor, subscribe, like, and share this channel with as many people as you can, just so I can get more and more people educational value and content going forward. Now, today's topic is going to be about why you might need a real estate agent to help you buy or sell your home. So in the beginning, I had this entire laundry list of items that I was going to mention to you guys, why it's important to have a realtor, negotiation, inspections, home showings. And I had all this list that I planned out, and I basically scrapped it. And I said, you know what? Let's just speak from the heart based on some personal stories, experiences, successes, and even failures to help me really dive deep and help you, the audience, understand why I, being in the business for 14 years, feel that it is important to use a professional when it comes to buying or selling your biggest financial asset that you might have in your entire life. So let's dig deep, talk about some personal stories, and I want to really bring you into my world. And hopefully with these stories, you can understand why I believe it might be important for you to use a real estate agent, whether it's me or somebody else you know. So it all came from a client of mine. This was a few years ago when I was just getting started in the industry. And I remember I had helped him buy a house. And we planned to list his house after we purchased because the market was doing really well and it was hot. And we knew, or we had a good feeling, that we were going to sell it. Me, as a newer realtor, was kind of intimidated by the seller. And the seller wanted to list it at a certain price. And I knew deep down that the house wasn't worth that much. And I basically just sort of fell back due to intimidation. And I said, yeah, you know what, let's list it at your price. Not knowing that the home price was too high and that was going to sit on the market. In that span of 30, 40 days, the market started to tank. What ended up happening was he didn't sell his home and there was a whole bunch of issues later on. So why am I sharing my failure? Is because I want you to understand how I learned from it and what you can understand from this as well. Now, after this whole debacle, the client called me afterwards, and he's a friend of mine. He's still a great friend of mine, but he told me something that I listened to or I follow to this day, is where my eyes opened up and he said, look, Ahsan, the reason why I hired you as a real estate agent was for you to advise me as to what I should be doing. And when he said that, the eyes opened wide open, the light turned on, the switch turned on, whatever you want to call it. But I realized from that day that my job is to be an advisor to my clients, is to advise them on the value of their property, to advise them based on the situation. Whether or not I'm intimidated or not, that shouldn't matter to me. What matters is giving my clients the right advice and making sure that they're taken care of. A lot of times I feel that we don't give that advice because we're either scared of them or intimidated. And so we sort of get afraid and step back. But now my vision, my goal with my clients is whether or not they like it or not, I'm going to advise them because I know what's going to be good for them at the end of the day. If I feel that their home is overpriced, I tell them right now. They may not like it. They may not even hire me, but at least I've done my due diligence and told them this is the fact. If I feel that they're putting an offer on a house that's too high, I tell them. And it may cost me to lose a deal. That's totally fine by me because I want to make sure that I do good by them, because what happens is if I do good by them, they'll remember that advice. They'll remember that I looked out for them, and they'll refer me to other clients who also need that same trust and advice. So when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, one of the biggest reasons, or the biggest reason, in my opinion, as to why I think you should use a realtor when it comes to buying or selling your home is because a realtor, a good realtor, a savvy realtor, is going to be an advisor for you. The same way you hire a lawyer to advise you, the same way you hire an accountant to advise you, and so many other professionals out there, right? So our job, it comes down to being an advisor to you, whether you're a buyer or a seller or even an investor. Now, that's the most important part of this job. And I'm going to share with you a few other items that I feel are also very important when it comes to real estate industry and choosing the right realtor. Now, if you hadn't known already, as someone who lives in Ontario or the Greater Toronto area, you actually don't need to hire a real estate agent. You can actually buy or sell a home without using a realtor. A lot of people don't know that. And when I bring that up to people, they're kind of surprised. And you kind of see some people trying to sell their home on their own, trying to buy their house on their own as well. It works out sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. So if we put away all of the, laundry list of items that the realtor can do for the client, if we just focus on one thing and one thing only, that is time, right? The reason why you hire a realtor, to keep it very, very simple, is because you might not have the time to go out and do an open house, to show prospective clients, to qualify clients, to market the house, because you have a full-time job. You're working already. Why would you take on a second full-time job to try to sell your house? Now, if you're in a situation where you've done this many times and you have the time and you've done the research, then by all means, if you can do it, you can do a better job than myself or anybody else. That's fine. But what I find is that time is a big, big reason as to why you should hire someone who's a professional. So I'll give you my own example. So I went to school for accounting for 4 years and I graduated in accounting. I worked at an accounting firm for about a year and a half. And to this day, I hire an accountant who does my corporate taxes. Now, if I really sat down and if I really researched it, I'm pretty sure I could do my own taxes, knowing that I have a background in accounting, and I probably could. But I choose not to for two reasons. Number one, I just don't have the time. And number two, because I don't have the time, I don't want to make mistakes that will cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm not updated on the rules of accounting. My accountant is. And back to the advising part of this, he's going to advise me as to what I should expense, what I shouldn't, what will prevent me from getting audited, things like that, where I may not be privy to information in 2024 or 2025. So I don't have the time, and that's why I hire him, because I trust him, and he's going to give me the right advice. That's number one. Number two comes down to experience and reps in the business. I've been in the business for about 14 years now. My accountant's been in the business for about 25, 30 years now. I'm going to trust him for his advice because he has more experience than me. And I'm never, ever, ever going to belittle that. My philosophy in life has always been to never nickel and dime a professional's worth. If an accountant, if a lawyer, if somebody is giving me good service and good advice, I'm happy to pay them a little bit more because I know that's going to prevent me from paying thousands of dollars in the future. So I hope you understand that. And I'll give you another example in the real estate industry, photography, videography, this podcast right now. I've got Savannah Productions who's filming it right now at this moment. If I really wanted to, I could probably record my own podcast, edit my own clips, take my own listing videos and photos. And if I put maybe 6 months of hard work, I think I could probably get somewhat good, not as good as Savannah Productions, of course, but maybe like 10% of that. And I would save money on the listing photos, the videos. But the fact of the matter is I don't have time to do that. If I focus all my energy and time on making videos for my listings, photography, first of all, it looks unprofessional to the client. Second of all, I don't have the craft and workmanship that Fayaz has at Savannah Productions. So he's been doing this for years and years and years. So I know that if I hire him and pay him some money, he's going to do a good job for me because he's going to advise me as to what photos to take. He's going to advise me on what photos not to take. He's going to be the expert. He's going to edit. And he has the time because this is his full-time job, full-time gig. I don't have that time. And if I spent that time in trying to learn photography, edit my own podcast, I'm doing myself a disservice because now I'm taking away energy and time from my own business, which is sales and marketing and trying to advise people. So you have to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. So we've talking about two of the biggest things of why I think, hiring a realtor or a professional is important when you're buying or selling a house is number one, realtor being your advisor. And number two is just the time value, not having the time to commit to selling or buying a house. Again, if you have that time, if you feel you have the knowledge, by all means, no one's stopping you from hiring a realtor. Go ahead and do it. And I've seen some people actually really do really well because they're just a jack of all trades, but we're not all like that. The last point I want to drill home is so often every year, one or two people always, ask me, hey, as a realtor, why do I have to hire you? All you really do is just show homes. There's no value to that. And at first I actually used to get offended by that question, but now that I think of it, it's actually a really, really good question because it's a legitimate question and it's a legitimate answer. right? The rep is that sometimes realtors just open a lockbox and show a home, but there's a lot more detail involved in that, including the facilitation of the entire deal. So when somebody asks me that question, they're not asking to offend me. They're legitimately asking, what do you do? Right? If I want to hire somebody for a project or a lawyer or an accountant, I'm going to ask them, what can you do to help? What is your value proposition? So it's a very, very fair question. And I tell them the same thing. I said, number one, a realtor is going to be your advisor. A realtor is going to take away all the activities that you would have had to done, and he'll do it himself or he or she will do it themselves, because they have a turnkey solution, a system that's dedicated to make sure that end to end, your deal will be facilitated the right way. Which brings me to that third point, facilitation of the entire deal. So as a realtor, there's a lot more involved than just showing a house, opening a lockbox, booking showings. That actually, in my opinion, is probably one of the lower items in the tasks of a realtor, right? Because nowadays you have online searches, people can go to House Sigma, Zillow, Realtor.ca. A lot of people find their own house, but what do you do next? And that next aspect is so crucial to the entire process. And for example, when I find a house for a client, or if they find it, what's the value of the house? What if a buyer thinks that the house is worth something and he goes directly to the buyer or seller and he buys it and realizes later that he overpaid for it? That's where a realtor comes in. A realtor can evaluate the neighborhood. He can give you the market evaluation. He can tell you, this is what the house is worth. This is what you should offer. This is what you shouldn't offer. And I'll give you an example of my own client this year, sorry. We bought a house in Newmarket. It was priced for 1.8 million. And the client walked in. He absolutely loved it. And he was like, put an offer in. Let's get it done at asking price. I'm like, hold your horses. Let's not get emotional and let that dictate our decision. And I realized that we can probably negotiate this deal down to a certain number where it'll make the client really happy. And that's what we did. Looked at the values, kind of got a read of the seller, their motivation, all these questions I asked the seller's agent. Why are they moving? How flexible are they in negotiation? I looked at the house itself. How old is the roof, the furnace, the air conditioner, the windows. These are all things that the buyer will have to think about when they're buying a house. Because a lot of times what happens, people buy a house and they have to end up paying $30,000 because they didn't know the roof or the furnace or AC was brand new. It was old. So these are things that we sort of uncover, compile, and show to the buyers. This is what's needed to renovate the house, right? That's number one. Negotiation, again, is a big thing. Negotiating the right price for the buyer. Then you have the home inspection, right? Hiring the home inspector to make sure that the home is in good condition. If there are any red flags, we dissect them. We either walk away from the deal or we can ask the sellers to fix them, right? You have the appraisal. How many times do buyers buy a home and they realize that the banks actually won't match the price they bought it for the appraisal, and they come up short and they have to pay the extra fees or the money to get the mortgage done. Myself, I work with lenders, brokers who I work hand in hand with, and we find out what the appraisal of the property to make sure that the mortgage will be okay. We do our visits to the property. We check out the house before it's closed to make sure that there's no damages from the time you bought the house to the closing. Making sure that we get all the keys, making sure that all the paperwork is correct, making sure that the conditions are there. There's so many things that I can go on and on about, which I'll probably make another video about later on. But the key thing is that it all comes down to professionalism, experience, and hiring somebody who you believe is going to be able to handle, again, your biggest financial asset that you're probably going to buy or sell in your life. So not trying to convince you, trying to mention to you that you can still do it by yourself. There's no reason why you cannot. But if you are, then you better hunker down and study the market, learn the market, and really be indulged in what's going on so you can do a good job. But again, why would you do that if you have somebody that you can hire who can maybe help you get some more money and possibly even save you money at the end of the day? So those are the reasons why I think it's crucial to hire a professional. And if you can do that, I believe that you'll be positioned well to sell or buy your home. I hope the information was helpful. If you have any questions and you want more reasons as to why a realtor can be an important part of your sale or buy, give me a shout and I'll be happy to assist you. Thank you.